Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 13 of Naruto, the ultimate deterrent weapon. If you guys enjoy this what if, and want to see part 14 of it, comment down below, and let me know. The like goal for this video is 100 likes. So like this video, to let me know that you're interested in this series, and you want the next part. Then go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel. Before we start, please do support for more awesome content. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. Larry's eyes peered open out of focus as a swarm of muted colors washed over his vision. He closed his eyes for a moment to collect himself before he opened them again, and his eyes started to focus. He noticed the depressing white walls of the room he was in, and quickly figured out he was in the hospital. He never loved coming here for obvious reasons, but sometimes it was okay. As his senses became reoriented, he became quickly aware of the body next to him. Kuromi was right there sitting in the chair next to his bedside. Her head had dropped forward, showing she had fallen asleep. The soft sound of her breathing as she slept put a small smile on his face. He moved to get up only for Kuromi's eyes to instantly snap open and turning towards him. She relaxed a second later, showing she had simply reacted to his movement as she grabbed his hand and held it to her cheek. So you finally woke up? Woke up? Oh right, the invasion. So what happened? She gave him a level look as she answered him slowly. Well, one of the big things would be that this village's Hokage died. She saw her container's eyes whiten a degree at the information before they slowly relaxed, and he let out a sigh. Alright, what's next? You took that well. Yeah, well, the old ass may have been a shit leader and fucked over my life, but at one time he was the only one who even looked my way. It's better for me that he's gone, but it would have been good if he wasn't so lazy in his decisions. Well, after the fight with the snake woman, I guess she had to cut her losses because she ran away not long after you passed out. I cleaned up here and there in the village. After everything was over, a number tried to kill me, but most were smart enough to keep their hands to themselves. I found your body and carried you here. Many saw, and I guess seeing you and the dreaded demon in different bodies confused them. As you rested and healed, there were several who tried to break in and hurt you or me. After a few hours, that bandaged old man had the room protected by his puppets. A few did come to visit you though. Mainly that cute mouse child with the pale eyes. Hinata, I think her name was, and some of those other children from your graduating class. Your teacher stopped by too, though I don't think he likes me. She shrugged, not really caring. You've been out for around 2 days. More than enough time for you to heal, but I'm assuming you did something else that was really stupid for you to be out this long. He scratched his head and frowned. I'm actually not sure. I saw some things, but I'm not sure if that was even real. If it was real, then I don't know how I'm alive. I think I can answer that. They both broke out in a cold sweat as all color left the room, and floating in the air on the other side of Naruto opposite of Kuromi, a figure appeared. They saw a figure in a long white kimono and purple trim. On their face was a dark purple hanyu mask holding a long knife in its mouth. They moved the mask to rest on the side of their head, showing an alluring otherworldly woman with long and messy white hair that went down over one eye. Her eyes being a gold cold and slanted, and her skin being a pale yet creamy color. Her face had tints of purple, and with her hand being visible, after moving her mask she appeared to have long and dark nails. From her head went out a pair of dark horns. Kuromi's tail quickly bristled on end before the woman held up her hand. I mean you no harm. Naruto didn't react as strongly but still looked curious. Who are you? Well, many would know me as the Shinigami. You may call me Neo if you wish. The death god. I mean goddess. But how? Like, aren't you supposed to look demonic? Naruto nodded as Neo smiled. Well, usually I do, but you see, after you filled me with so much of your spiritual juices, I was able to regain my original and youthful appearance. But because of that, I am now pregnant with your child. Naruto just started at her with a blank face for a moment as Kuromi looked horrified. A few seconds later, the girl laughed at them, causing Kuromi to glare at her. Fufufu, I was only joking. But I did absorb a lot of your spiritual power. A mortal is not supposed to have that much, but you appear to be different. The amount you let go, though, don't do that again, because you can die from doing that. The soul also takes a while to heal when part of it is forcibly ripped off. Because of how strong and abundant your spiritual energy was, it actually allowed my body to be visible to mortals. Oh, so what now? She shrugged and floated down to his bed, propping her elbows up on it as she gave a small smile to him. Nothing really. As an actual god, I'm not allowed to interfere a lot with the mortal realm. You've caught my attention, however, and the flavor of your soul is one of a kind, so I think I'll stick around every now and then. That's it. I expected you to offer something. Or maybe be pissed at how I disgraced the death god seal and violated your contract. It was a contract placed on you without your consent. You have a right to violate it however you wish, as you having Miss Kyuubi sealed, and you honestly did not make the world a better place. You may enjoy your time with her, and so things are turning out better than what could be predicted, but that was not the intentions of the one who sealed you anyway. Naruto took that all in and accepted. Neo chose to leave out the fact that in his berserk state, he actually struck her. Making physical contact with the god is not something that is supposed to be feasible. But now that I've said my part, look forward to seeing me in the future. I'll be around. She gave them a nice smile to both of them, Kuromi still being on guard around the goddess before she faded out of existence, and a few seconds later her presence was gone. Naruto still wasn't sure how he should respond to what just happened. He knew gods were real, but to have an actual conversation with one, and the Shinigami at that while still being alive and having said Shinigami turn out to be an extremely hot girl that looked around Kuromi's physical age was not something he had been expecting. As Naruto was lost in his own thoughts, Kuromi calmed herself again and looked at him. I was worried, you know. After you broke your limit against the snake woman you started to damage your body. Then at one moment, which I guess was when you encountered that death goddess, you actually started killing your body like you were self-destructing. That's why you took so long to heal. On the outside the damage looked superficial, but internally your bones and organs were a lot more fragile than usual, and your chakra coils were burnt, which made it take longer for you to heal until they repaired themselves. If you had been attacked right after you passed out, so much as a good punch in the right area may have been lethal for you. He didn't say anything but just looked at his hands. He didn't want her to feel so worried and helpless as she probably did, but he was not aware that the chain seal he put on himself had such consequences. His body really was not ready for it, he suppose. But something changed since that fight. I don't know what happened, but that metal in your body, it's even harder for me to tell it apart from you now, and your chakra seems to resonate with it. That might be good news. He would have to find out later. But to know Kuromi. He motioned with his hand, causing her to absently obey and move towards him. When she was close enough, his hand slid through her hair and held the back of her head. She moaned and closed her eyes as Naruto kissed her. It was a sweet and deep kiss as they communicated their feelings to each other. She was so happy to have the intimate moment with him. The past couple days had been stressful and foreign to her as she had interacted with so many humans. Some in a positive way but was mostly negative, and yet she made sure not to leave his side. For Naruto, just touching her was refreshing as she was his lifelong partner. It was weird, but even though he finally separated their bodies, he didn't feel a sense of emptiness without her. After a minute they parted slowly and Naruto fumbled with his words a little. Kuromi, I love you, you know. Her eyes glimmered a little in surprise and emotion, before she grabbed his hand and put his palm to her cheek. And I as well, you know. It was at that moment he started to feel hot, and not in a good way. Kuromi notices his eyes suddenly shift from their blues to orange, and steam started to go off his body as he felt pain. Before he could figure out what was wrong, his eyes zoned out, and the next thing he knew he was in his mindscape. His mind had been a lush meadow and forest with a fenced-in area and small home, because of his efforts to make the place more comfortable for Kuromi. Now however the grass was charred black, and trees were burning as the home was also in a similar state, bellowing smoke. Behind the wall of smoke he saw glowing red eyes before it was blown away with a roar. He shielded his eyes, before getting caught off guard, when he saw a nine-tailed fox. For a second he thought it was Kuromi and he still thought it was her, but something was different. The fur was a touch darker, and the sclare was well coming off as a bit grey. The beast dashed head on for Naruto, startling him for a moment. Before the Kyuubi could pass the fence, which they might have been able to with the state the seal was in now, he instinctively used his chains. They shot all out of the ground, many more than what he would have been able to easily use in reality. They wrapped around the beast's arms and legs, and neck, restraining it as its outstretched claws stopped a few feet from his face. Bastard. It let out in a deep growl as Naruto rubbed his chin in thought. Well, this explains the lack of an empty feeling inside me. So you are the other half. You're pretty lively, aren't you? Naruto started to lose interest when he got no response, and they continued to growl at him. I'll come back when you've calmed down some. He spun on his heel and walked off, only to feeling a change as his chains clinked and tightened. Oh, don't leave me like this, you bastard. He looked back, and lost himself as he saw Kuromi now bound by chains glaring at him with an evil smirk on her face. You wouldn't just leave me like this, would you? Naruto walked towards her, but before he could get close enough there was a flash of red in front of him, before the Kuromi buckled over as something stabbed her in her stomach. Ah. We've been apart for near 15 years. I suppose even if we were the same being, that's plenty enough of time for us to become different people. Kuromi didn't remove her hand from her other as the other half glared at her. So the memories I got recently weren't false. You've really allowed us to be mated to a human. Sorry, but this is how things are now. I love him, but you have no reason to hate him now, do you? You saw the memories of what me just being sealed in him caused, correct? The other tasks and gritted their teeth, but looked away, nodding. But so you understand. Act against him and we will literally be our own worst enemy. Anything he asks of me, I will do it for him. She pulled her hand out of her other's stomach, causing the hole that was spilling red yokai to heal over. Naruto let go of his control on the chains, letting the other fox woman drop to the ground and moved closer. So since I guess you two reached an agreement, what should I call you? The woman glared at him, making him sweat drop a little. She quickly looked at Bash as Kuromi sent a dark look her way. Call me whatever you wish. Kuromi gave out an exasperated sigh before giving a small smile to Naruto. Just call her Kami love. Naruto smirked a little at her choosing that name. The two fox women did look identical except Akami looked a little darker and more malicious. Akami it is then. So what now? Well, you can do whatever you want. You can let her out, but I recommend at least waiting till you can trust that she won't go on a rampage the moment you do. Akami was feeling betrayed as she glared at her twin who smirked back. Akami gained a smirk of her own as a thought occurred to her. She looked back at Naruto and sent him a look that made him shiver. Come on now Naruto KON. If you let me out I'll do whatever you want. Naruto looked at her blankly and pointed to Kuromi. The twin is right there. Sexual favors won't work that easily when I can just go to Kuromi-chan. Well, I may not be able to fully stop you in the real world with Kuromi's help, it would be easy. I could rape you, and I wouldn't feel guilty about it because I'd know you'd at least half enjoy it. Kuromi grinned evilly in agreement. Oh, it would be more than half, I can promise you that. Akami looked helpless as she couldn't do anything. This isn't fair. Well then act like a good girl, and I'll treat you like a good girl. His eyes refocused as he was in the hospital again. His tongue swished in his mouth as he noticed how strange it felt. Looking over at the nightstand he saw a mirror and grabbed it. Looking at it his eyes widened in surprise. God, I'm sexy. Kuromi blinked at him oddly, having thought he already knew that. He pulled at his cheek and saw what the problem was. His teeth were sharp and predator-like. It reminded him of Zabuza actually, and he didn't know if his cursed sword was the cause of it, or if it was because of the other half of the fox being in him. He swung himself out of the bed and pulled off his bandages and gauze from his upper body, as he no longer had any injuries at all. As if on cue the door opened and Danzo made his way in. The warhawk locked gaze with Kuromi, and the tension was thick for a moment before it passed. You have finally awoken. Yep, seems I overdid things a little. If you are here to catch me up to speed, Kuromi already told me the bulk of it. Danzo tapped his cane on the ground as Naruto stretched. This saves me time then. The current order of business is Sarutobi's funeral, which is tomorrow, of which attendance is mandatory for all shinobi. After that we will need to select a new Hokage candidate. Naruto ignored the news about the late Sandaime. So is it going to be then? You? Danzo scoffed as he kept his expression hard. If this were a decade prior then I would be more than ready to take the position. However, I am old. Naruto snickered, to which Danzo ignored as well. How long I would be able to stay in office would not be long, more than likely, nor am I that favored amongst the village. There were only two other choices I would say for the position of Hokage. There's Hotake Kakashi, as he was a gifted shinobi, and while he has let his skills deteriorate, he is still the village's top jonin, as well as the most experienced one. He is almost solely an assassin however, which would put him at a disadvantage to many Kages, not counting the fact his stamina and reserves are poor. Yeah, just thinking of that scarecrow being Hokage makes my ass hurt. The final choice would be you. Hahaha. Wait, what now? He could have sworn that for the smallest fraction of a second he saw Danzo smirk, catching him so off guard. You're young, hated by much of the village, and a rookie. However, you are powerful, progressing rapidly, and have the backbone and intelligence to lead the village over the council. Your control over your Biju helps close the skill gap between your power and that of other Kages. Ignoring your eccentricities, you can bring this village to glory. I know this personally. I will also be there for aid and guidance when you need it. He held up his hand, cutting Danzo off. I have a better idea. We will make Kuromi the Hokage. The rear leader's lone visible eye widened infinitely. It took him so long to get back under control that Naruto was able to burn the image of it in his mind. Kuromi had a similar expression on his face. Assuming I agreed with this terrible suggestion, what would be your reasoning for having her lead instead of yourself? Think of it this way, Danzo. We would have the most powerful Biju standing at the top of this village. It would send an immediate message to any village that even if we were invaded, it only made us more dangerous. If I was made Kage, other nations wouldn't immediately see me as a threat, and that could cause problems. The villagers are idiots, but people are also sheep. She was widely hated, and the reason why I was hated, but she was seen saving many during the invasion. That may not be enough, but if you publicly back her, that could be just enough of the push that is needed to get things going. And even if it's not, Kuromi was meant to rule, and I will be able to control things from the shadows, just like you. Danzo looked at Naruto dumbfounded for a second, before the smallest nigh undetectable smile showed on his face for a moment. He knew the boy was smart, but he was still surprised every now and then. So you want your partner to be the Hokage, but you want to replace me? Very well, if it is the understanding that Kuromi-san will act in the village's best interest and obey you, then I will support this. At the old man finally referring to her by name, she slowly nodded, unsure of herself as everything was happening so fast. Naru-kun. Also look at it this way. A Biju as a Kage gives the village a certain sense of invulnerability. Most mortals do not have the means to kill a Biju, so the only option would be to seal her. If that happens, I can just as easily find her and break that seal. Plus I have both halves of her now too. Danzo rose an eyebrow at that, as he knew something had changed, but wasn't sure what it was. Oh, then that makes your proposal all the more appealing. Know to expect that there will likely be both civilians and shinobi actively acting against her. Let them come, this will be a lesson to them that they will get no protection for their actions anymore. Kuromi will be free to do with them as she wishes. The Kage should more than have that right after all. To make sure she's not undermined, and that things progress smoothly, let's have the root take a more obvious role with the Anbu and build another level behind them of even more elite shinobi. I will also be making my own division active. Your little circle is compass of poverty and thugs, correct? Even if some of them are resourceful, they are all still civilians for the most part. He grinned, flashing off his new sharp teeth. I've been working on a bit of a project and experiment for that, don't worry about it. To increase the success rate, however, I'm going to need a really good doctor. Kuromi looked down as she followed behind Naruto a bit nervously. People gave her a wide berth, not sure how to react. The killing intent Naruto gave out casually was enough for no one foolish enough to strike against her. Kuromi wasn't sure what Naruto meant by his own division, but from the few memories she was able to get to on it, she had an idea. Kuromi, hold your head up. You are above them, and you will also be above them officially in a few days, so get used to it. If it's not going to bother you, then I will hold strong. She moved her head up, looking serious, and noticed as they got closer to the slums where Naruto lived that people were less cautious, and many looked his way, giving him discreet nods, both in greeting and respect. He sent out hand signs which led to those who saw it communicating with others. She didn't know what the signs meant, but would ask him later. They entered the apartment with him locking the door behind them as Kuromi finally spoke out. What the hell, container? You are making me Hokage. Not only is this a terrible idea, but I don't even want to do this. He was startled a bit at how fast she railed on him. I thought you said you would do whatever I said. She lost a lot of the heat in her words as she stumbled. Yes, but... Naruto sighed in disappointment. I should have known it wouldn't be that easy. She grew confused when he walked towards her until she was suddenly pushed towards the couch. Naruto. Her shout of indignation was silenced when Naruto suddenly shadowed her as he pinned her. She shivered at the look he gave her, and the feel he gave off. He really had grown in the past month, as he was now taller than her and his scent was strong. Looks like I need to persuade you. Whatever he did to himself had in a way froze him in time, so the past 2 days he did not waste himself or anything like that while he was in his coma, but the sweat from battle still clung to him, and his musky scent made her skittish. You haven't bathed. I know you like this kind of thing. Not wasting any time, he ripped off her top and roughly grabbed her breasts, making her give a pain moan as he gripped them. My perverted little vixen who falls to her baser instincts of a little musk. I've noticed your body is tougher now, probably because you've been released, but that doesn't matter. It just means I can be rougher, since my little vixen is also a masochist. Chakra started to emanate from him, and through his hand striking her sensitive nipples and breasts. Her eyes widened as she screamed out through clenched teeth as her body convulsed from a sudden orgasm. He blinked and removed his hand, to look at it confused. That was an accident, and yet I felt no pain from it. He gained a sinister look as he grinned back at her, making her nervous. Naruto-kun, can't we discuss the Kage issue another way? His hand emanated chakra again, and in a quick movement, her slapped her right between her legs. She wasn't able to keep her jaw shut this time as she gave out a wanton cry, her shorts being destroyed in the process, as she squirted herself again. His chakra had invasively shot up through her womanhood into her core. He got off her as she rolled onto her side and held her hands between her legs in fetal position. Why? She whimpered as she was not expecting her container to use his chakra in such a way. If she were in a clear state of mind, she would know that she could probably physically overpower him if she really tried, but the aura he gave off kept her in her place. The question was answered by Naruto discarding his own clothes. She cried a little as his erection pointed angrily at her. He was big before, but it seemed his entire body had grown in the past month. A little thicker and longer with his apparent sadistic streak, she didn't know what to do with her arousal. In a smooth motion he grabbed her leg to pull her towards him, and angled himself inside her reddened and dripping snatch. She saw stars as he gave a vicious thrust. He crashed into a womb hard, making her squirt again. Her back was arching and her toes curling as her tongue hung out. Her pussy was already hurting in pleasurable pain from coming multiple times in quick succession. Wow, you are just spraying all over yourself, eh? Looks like my future Kage needs some more discipline. He pulled out and thrust in her deliberately. He greatly enjoyed the feeling of her clenching around his dick so snugly. Yes, I'm going to have to discipline you a lot more often. He leaned forward and locked lips with her, getting her attention again before he leaned back. I want you to be this village's Hokage, because you are the only one I trust to hold that position. Yes, but that doesn't mean I'm suited for the position. She moaned out as he started thrusting into her at a constant pace. If you do a good job, I'll find new ways to spoil and pamper you, and I'll do it a lot more often. She whined as he was nearing his edge. That was a really great deal, but she had her pride. And if you don't, you're free to go. She was right there at the edge, only for him to stop at the last moment. But I'll stop having sex with you for the next month starting now. She looked at him in horror for actually stopping. She glared at him heatedly behind tear eyes, making his dick twitch excitedly. Kami, she's so cute. Fine, damn it, I'll do it. Just what I wanted to hear. He had been bluffing, but she didn't need to know that. He started up his thrusts again and went even harder as the couch started to break and her eyes rolled back. Yes, yes, I'll be your Kage. He buried himself in her, going right into her womb and let loose. She felt her heat pass as his thick cum was packed in her. Her pants died down when he pulled out as she wore a content smile. She squeaked out when he spun her round and sheathed himself in her snatch, again pushing out a few globs of cum. He had grabbed her ass and sneakily slid his thumb into her rosy backdoor. Her breathing grew harder as she actually pushed up against him. Oh, you like that, do you? He started to grab her ass harder, massaging it, causing his thumb to wiggle in her for more stimulation. Using his handhold as leverage, he pistoned into her already well-lubricated pussy, the sound of wet flesh smacking against each other, filling the room as their combined juice continued to drip out. He was hitting the right spots, which only made his girth more deadly. Her womb was feeling numb from the repeated bashing of his fat head against it. A few minutes passed and she came again. She gripped tightly on his cock, squeezing down, causing him to growl as he held off his own orgasm as long as he could. As her highs started to taper off, he roughly grabbed the chain around her neck and pulled it back, choking her a little as she was held up against him. She didn't know when he put the chain on her again, nor was she able to think about it. He whispered throatily in her ear as she quivered and struggled a little to breathe, having forgotten in the heat of things that she didn't need air. Come on now, Hokage-sama. What would your siblings think if they saw you being used as my plaything? She let out gurgled screams as he started to thrust in suddenly and hard, bruising her walls, before he buried himself in hard, lifting her up off the ground a little by only his chain and dick alone. His dick swelled, before letting out a second time. Not all the cum could stay inside of her ruined pussy as it shot out from where they were connected, pulling on the floor. He let out a long breath, it coming out as steam as his cumming slowed to a stop. He let go of the chain, and she fell forward like a sack of potatoes as part of her fell over the back of the couch, putting her in an inelegant position. His seed dripping out of her flush and quivering folds as she laid over the couch covered in sweat and breathing hard. Such a glorious picture, he burned it into his memory. He could end it there, but he would be leaving soon, so he wanted to make sure he was thorough. Alright, now release your fox traits, Kuromi. She wordlessly obeyed as her fox ears and tail sprouted. Her tail hitched up and leaned to the side, so he could have easy access to Mater. He accidentally bit his cheek at that, getting triggered at the thought that he body did that instinctively, showing begging him to fuck her. He stabbed into her again, holding on to the base of her tail tightly. The axe sent shocks through her body until Naruto used his chakra, and literal shocks went through her body. She came like a fountain, ruining the already stained couch even more. While she didn't need to eat, it was times like this so she did need plenty of water. He knew she could take it as he continued his rough way of fucking her. He leaned forward and sunk his teeth into the sweet spot of her neck. She cried out in pleasure as she closed her eyes and smiled, leaning back into him. He dragged his tongue over the wound, tasting blood, which honestly confused him. Viju didn't bleed, but he would think about it later. He had no plans today, so he could at least go another hour before they could stop. They continued to rut for a few hours before they stopped, more than satisfied. He leaned up against the wall as people went by in dark attire as the funeral for the Sandaime just ended. He was almost late for it as he had overslept. He didn't know why, but he just felt more exhausted than he should. Kuromi apparently had taken to watching him sleep, since it was rare that she would rise so much earlier than him. She didn't seem to mind if the sex wore him out. In fact, she was very happy with how the previous night was, but at the same time was pissed at the job he gave her. He didn't comment on it much, even if it hurt his pride a bit, but he had a feeling his exhaustion had nothing to do with the sex. He was almost completely sure it had something to do with him force-feeding that Shinigami woman his soul. Most didn't notice him as it was raining, and he wore all black like everyone else. Black pants, and a black hoodie hiding most of his head. He would be lying if he said he didn't feeling anything from that funeral. As much as the old man fucked up his childhood, he was a potential family member that would never be now. Well, it didn't matter anymore because there was going to be some serious changes. He sent eyes on him, putting him on guard. Naruto was almost always aware, but in a crowded area while it was raining, he could not pinpoint the target at all. It started to thunder as Naruto took to the roofs. He made way fast as he skated across the roofs, kicking up water and dashing over streets. He didn't notice how smooth he was doing it as the person following him was gaining fast. He made a far leap to a roof and skidded to a stop, while turning around to catch his pursuer. There was a flash of lightning behind him as his eyes constricted as the threats showed themselves. He looked behind himself a bit nervously to see the ZRAIARZ smirking at him. So you knew I was following you? But sorry to say, no one can outpace me. The man then laughed loudly as Naruto felt unnerved. He's way too fast, I didn't even feel him move around me. The man could have tried to kill him right there, and Naruto wasn't sure if his auto reaction would have defended him fast enough, especially since the Kage had been coated in some kind of lightning for a moment. Anyway son, I wanted to discuss some things with you. I was impressed with your display in the exams, and how you made a fool of my Genin Jinchuriki. Also, I have been at odds with your parents when they were alive. I notice you are not the most well received here in this village. During times when a village has no leader, shinobi are considered unfledged, and so are able to leave switch villages, if they wish to, and is a rule that 3 of the 5 major villages share. I am here to offer you a place in my village. Your natural talent, skills, and status would be more than welcome. Naruto was surprised out of his shit by that offer, as he righted his posture and relaxed. That doesn't sound bad at all. Not sure about leaving, but I think we can work out some kind of deal. You see in the next few days. He was glad it didn't rain the whole day, as he wanted to quickly go to the training fields and well train. He was faster than just about any genin, but Lee would have been able to match or maybe even pass him, if he opened 4 or 5 gates, and there were more gates than that, which meant he had to get faster. He had no idea how fast Fu and Yujito would have gotten when they used their beasts, and he had never seen Killer Bee in battle. But the biggest kicker was the ZRAIARZ. Just that one instant, and Naruto was quickly able to assess that the Dark Man could have killed him in that instant, and if he had fought the Sandaime, he would have quickly killed him too. In a world of assassins called ninjas, speed was possibly the most important category. If you could kill them faster than they could react, then not much else mattered, and that man clearly was not just all speed. Judging by his build, he shouldn't have been that fast at all, but he was, and that meant Naruto had to get faster. He already knew how to use his chakra to make himself faster. He was looking through an expanded bingo book to get any ideas for how to expand his idea of skills, and maybe figure something out to invent for his arsenal. It contained threats both dead and alive across generations, and held more information than the standard bingo book. This was a gift to him from Danzo, after he woke up a day ago. Hashirama, the first Hokage. Not known for his speed, but was a powerful all-rounder shinobi, but was more suited as a fortress destroyer. Not what I need. Tobirama, the second Hokage, had a godlike water affinity. Well, that doesn't help me at all, since that's the one affinity I don't have. Knew a bit of space-time fuinjutsu to move at instant high speed. He read that over again, curious. Well, that's not commonly taught. So seals can be the solution to my speed issue. I might think about that later. I want a more combat-flexible solution. He kept flipping through the pages, not finding what he was looking for. Madara is in here. Nothing in here leads me to believe his way of combat will help me. Itachi Uchiha is very fast and has a fast combat speed. Not known to do anything extra aside from chakra enhancing and the benefits of the Sharingan to speed this up. He flipped to one page that made him stall. Shisui, master of the Shunshin. Now deceased, to use his Sharingan to handle the speed of the Shunshin. That, combined with his own talent at using the jutsu at a rapid speed, allowed him to be extremely dangerous on the field of battle for as long as his chakra lasted. While very fast to use it in combat is probably limited to a short range, since you have to picture where you want to go or direct it down your line of sight. Even then, I don't believe the Shunshin would be faster than the Raikage's technique. Combined with my chakra, however. He held up a seal with one hand as he prepared to use the jutsu, this time using the amount of chakra he would use to create a simple clone. It was hard to actually get that chakra and hold on to it. On a whim, he closed one of his eyes, and things became almost unreally clear. His eye took on a light glow as his starburst blues dances brilliantly. There was a displacement around, as it was like time slowed, but really he just moved a lot faster as he crouched down, preparing to go as pebbles rose around him from the wind and chakra around him. He stumbled a bit before he even got going and dropped his chakra. He sighed and stood back up, noticing how his legs were subtly spasming. Come on out, I know you're there. Naruto spoke out, having felt eyes on him for a while now. Whoever it was, their chakra was strong, but they were doing a much better job concealing it. However, you can hide your chakra all you want. With how close they were to him and them being the only people in the area, it was a lot easier for him to detect their actual bodies. Which is why he already knew they were female. He was on guard after that little meeting with the Raikage, so was on edge when the fucking hot Mizukage walked out from behind a tree, but also relieved by the fact she didn't just straight up rush him. I wasn't expecting to be detected by a genin. I guess her sensory abilities are indeed impressive. She was wearing dark clothing, which showed she had attended the funeral as well. Damn, the dark businesswoman attire fit her on fairly well, especially with her top not missing. What can I do for you, Mizukage-san? She smiled at him lightly and squinted a little at him, not greeting her as formally as others would. Well, since you know who I am, this makes it easier. I am Kuromi, made the 5th Mizukage of the Mist, and you have my condolences for the death of your Hokage. I saw your performance, Naruto-kun, and I was very impressed. I impress a lot of people nowadays. But you aren't here just because of that, are you? Not that I would mind if you were. He gave her a sly look that caused the older woman to raise an eyebrow, growing amused. Fufufu, you're a bold one for your age. To say I'm not here because I was impressed wouldn't be entirely true, but I'm here for some information if you wouldn't mind parting with it. Depends on what it is. During your fight with the other hosts, you brandished a huge blade of swords. While darker in shade and slightly different, it still heavily resembled the blade of one of the legendary swordsmen of my village. That would be because I got it from Zabuza himself. I fought him at one point, and in our clash parts of his blade broke off in my body. Because of its trait of growing from blood and my own unstable chakra, it mutated. After a while I was able to call the weapon out at will without hurting myself. If you want the original blade back, it's in wave. I used it as a marker for his grave. She looked a bit surprised to hear that, but had suspected it. She noticed as he spoke that his teeth were quite a deal sharper than she remembered. He would fit in perfectly with the other swordsman. I will have that sword retrieved at some point in the near future then. The other thing I wanted to discuss with you would be if you had any interest joining the Mist village. We are rebuilding and would more than welcome someone with talents such as yours, along with your possibility to be a new swordsman. Your bloodline would be welcomed. You could replace our loss of a Jinchuriki. And your Uzumaki status would make you royalty, as the Uzumaki always had close ties with water country. If that's not enough, I'm sure we could work something out. The sultry look she gave him at the end made him gulp, as he wasn't expecting her to subtly try to seduce him to get him to join her village. Damn, if you had gotten to me before the Raikage, I might have said yes. She paled a little as his tone grew worried. He offered you a place in his village as well. Yep, I'm pretty popular today, I guess. I refuse, however. Tell you what, I know who the next Hokage of this village will be, and I have extremely close ties with them. How would you like to form an alliance of sorts? I can market my seals in your village and maybe other things, as long as I have the freedom to enter your village. She looked slightly frustrated, as she would have rather him become her shinobi, but this would likely be the best offer she could get. I will heavily consider your offer. If I can have smooth relations with the new leader of this village as well as the hero of Wave, it would work out all the better for my own village. I'm against this idea. To make a Bijuu Hokage is insane. Jiraiya growled out, showing how much he detested the situation. Yeah, well, it's not up to you. Maybe if you were in this village more often you would have had a say, but then that would have meant my godfather would have actually been around to raise me like he should have. Naruto drawled out without looking on him as he put on the new pieces of his gear. His words were his way of telling Jiraiya to shut up. He had on a high-color black short-sleeve hoodie with orange trim and gray pants. Kuromi stood a little awkwardly next to Danzo, who tapped his cane on the ground to get their attention. She will be the next Hokage, it has been decided. The only others who could go against this decision would be the other elders and the daimyo. I can handle the elders, and the daimyo will take time to get here. That will give Kyuubi-san time to get accustomed to her position. Some changes are needed to help the village move forward, however. One of those plans calls for an increase in our medical facilities, so we have need for Tsunade to return to the village. Sure, I can track down my old teammate with little effort, I just need some time, but don't expect her to want to return. Jiraiya shrugged, not feeling the importance all that much anyway. This woman is important to the village. If my container and his elder believe her to be important, then I shall as well. You are to bring her to this village. Persuade her however you can. Use force if necessary. Naruto smirked at his vixen as she found her voice. She was not Hokage yet, but with the fact being, she would be one in a day's time, she counted as a Hokage candidate right now. Since the previous Hokages were all dead, that gave her acting authority. She hadn't read all the legal and judicial rules, but Naruto had read most, and he had been kind enough to send her that knowledge mentally to her. He glared at the fox woman. Babe, you can order me all you want, that doesn't mean I'll listen. The pressure she gave off frightened him, made him break out in a sweat as his red eyes glowed darkly at him, promising intense pain or death for disobeying her. Naruto chuckled as he put a hand on Jiraiya's shoulder. Come on, pervert. She's a Bijuu, not a human. She's way more likely to kill you for disrespect than others. If I let her, she will make sure you feel it too. Jiraiya grumbled as he went out the door without another word. Danzo nodded to Naruto, before leaving his own way. The Warhawk was already seeing the fruits of making Kuromi a Kage, but he still did not trust her. Just because his protege didn't mean anything to him. He would be watching her closely. Naruto moved up to Kuromi and pulled her into a reassuring kiss. I'm expecting my vixen to do a fantastic job managing this village. Yes, I told you I didn't want to do this. We can't always do what we want. Besides, this way you can see what it's like to have an actual career. Also, I wanted to get you as high a position as possible, worthy of your grace and reputation, and this was as close as I could get. He was purposefully inflating her ego as her tail emerged a second later, wagging lightly as she tried to still look pissed. He walked around her and squeezed her shoulders. Think of it this way. All the people who went against and discriminated against me and you now are in charge of. The Hokage is a dictator-type military position. You have the most power and you can do whatever you want. She grumbled out an okay as Naruto moved away. She tried to hide how much she liked the sound of that, but her tail gave her away as it wagged faster. This makes sure the village isn't on fire when I get back. I still can get some use out of it. Danzo should be able to help you with the political part for a little bit, but he likely won't help you for long. You need to get yourself your own attendant. I don't know who you could even pick, but that's up to you. I still don't want to do this. Sure you don't. He gave her a quick peck on the cheek, before he shunted it away to follow after Jiraiya. The day passes. Naruto cleaned off in a stream ready to start the day. He let out a breath of relief at feeling the crystal clear cool water glide over his body. Kuromi should be getting inaugurated soon. I'm not feeling any distress from her, which means things are going smooth enough for her. Now that he had broken so much of the seal, they were still linked to a degree, but at this range he could barely feel her. If my other half is smart, she'll castrate all the males and create a matriarchal society. The hell is wrong with you? Sure, he still needed to get used to Akami, and he was pretty dark himself at times, but that served no point at all. Males are only useful for breeding, so should only be used for labor-intensive tasks. Humans don't live forever. If males are only useful for breeding, the castrating them will defeat the purpose, and the population would eventually die. That is not my concern. Besides, only strong males should be used for breeding. So only ones like you should be kept around. There are others, correct? I'm not sure he would take that as a compliment, but really the only relief he got out of that was that somehow he was exempted from the castration list the problematic beast in his body had. Yo brat. He stopped his inner conversation with his new tenant and looked over at Jiraiya, who had been looking at him curiously. Yeah? How's your training going? I'm not sure. Ever since I woke up I felt different. I can do this a little easier now, however. He opened up his hands, and a sinking quickly formed in both, causing Jiraiya's jaw to drop. Other than that, my actual unique abilities I have to find out. I am working on figuring out a few things with my bloodline, though that I didn't get to try out in the exams, as well as working on improving my speed. Are you sure you don't want the Toad contract? Hell yeah, I'm sure. Not touching that. Jiraiya pouted, as anyone would have loved to have a pupil so skilled sign their contract. Something has been bothering me for some time though, kid. In the exams you said when your eyes turned that orange pattern that during that time you were drawing in the energy around you, right? Yeah, he rose an eyebrow, the man not sure what the point was. Well, if you were really doing what you've said, then I think you may have achieved your own version of senjutsu. Sage mode would be how many are able to access senjutsu, yet it's something hardly anyone can achieve. You were able to do so without any negative consequences from what I can tell, and could hold it at extended periods of time, and activate it quickly. You are sage in a way in that form, but it might be something only you can achieve thanks to your bloodline. So my bloodline allows me to do things in a way that is unique to me. Well, that would explain a little. They continued to make their way to a nearby town. Naruto did not bother to walk, so Jiraiya was forced to not waste time as they ran. Because they were running, Naruto didn't have to listen to Jiraiya's constant whining about how great toads were, and that he should sign. It annoyed him, so much that he had to breathe for a moment in relief, when some fairly attractive girl went by, and winked at them, causing Jiraiya to haul ass for that ass. Still feeling unusually exhausted now that Jiraiya was gone, he found himself a nearby hotel room, and rented one for the night. If Jiraiya wanted to find him, he had no doubt he would easily, but he liked his privacy. Moving towards the bed to crash, she did just that as he dove face first, and passed out for the next hour. His instincts being triggered, his eyes snapped open, and he pushed himself up as he felt some extremely strong chakra nearby next to someone with low Biju level reserves. Did another container figure out how to release their beast? He thought on it for a moment and shook his head, dismissing the thought. Now the Biju would likely have no reason to stick around then. My situation with Kuromi is probably unheard of. He suddenly went on edge as he felt their bodies moving closer to him as they turned down the hall and moved towards his door. Slowly he moved into a guarded stance as he slowly got off the bed. Knock knock. Naruto blinked as he stared at the door oddly. Well, at least they're polite. Maybe if they don't think I'm here they'll go away. There was another knock on the door and he didn't move to open it at all. Suddenly the door was destroyed as Naruto covered his eyes from the dust. Well, that's rude. He got a good look at the two who stood at the doorway and his eyes whiting. He saw them wearing black cloaks with red clouds, which quickly told him that they were either gay lovers or part of some organization. He noticed one of them right away. Uchiha Itachi, and who the fuck are you? The shark man smirked. The kid at least knew who you were but didn't even flinch. He's got some spine to him, maybe I should break it. He grabbed the hilt of the bandaged sword on his back, preparing to strike. Itachi held his hand out, slowing him down. Kasame, don't be hasty, we may be able to resolve this without much issue. Naruto-kun, we don't need to hurt you, we just want the beast sealed inside you. Off back at the Leaf Village, Kuromi's eye twitched as she had to deal with so many civilians bitching, and some even started beating each other up. They predictably did not take well to her being Hokage. Surprisingly though, not everyone cried about it. All of a sudden she felt the need to sneeze and did so. It was a cute little sneeze too. That sudden action sent everyone running away in fear, which caused Kuromi to gain an even staler look as she glanced over at Danzo, who had an unreadable expression. I told you this was a bad idea. Naruto felt the need to sweat drop a little. Well, you guys are only half right. He didn't say anything else, because if they got away they would learn soon that the half of the fox they knew of was actually the new Hokage of the village, making her harder target. It was good to know that people were hunting his vixen and probably the other Biju now. Now he wouldn't be surprised in the future. He would try to keep it secret a little longer that he had the other half of the Kyuubi in him now as well. What's that supposed to mean? Kasame tilted his head at him as Naruto grinned in turn, showing off that he also had shark-like teeth, making the man whistle. Wouldn't you like to know? Kasame looked even more excited at the response as he grabbed his sword and hoisted it up. At that moment Naruto stomped forward, prepared to meet him. Before he could physically react, Itachi stepped to his side and shot his hand out to grab his neck. Itachi blinked and moved his fingers when he didn't feel any resistance. They both looked at Naruto, surprised to see Naruto leaning back a few inches, avoiding the hand. Itachi tried again, shooting a hand out to grab him. Naruto avoided each one, moving out of the way the moment Itachi moved his arm. He glanced at the Uchiha slowly, as it was like time slowed between them, and starburst blues locked with hell reds. His eyes glowed as he actively used his Sharingan and shot his hand out again. Naruto moved out of the way, but Itachi's hand curved to still get him, grabbing his throat hard as he choked. Naruto glared and flexed his body, breaking the grip on his neck, as Itachi was pushed back, giving a startled look. Naruto danced to the side as his sword came down, breaking the floor like a blunt weapon. "You're spry one." Kasame showed off his strength by grabbing with both hands and ripping the blade from the ground in a diagonal sweep at him. Their eyes all widened as a black blade grew out of Naruto's arm closest to the sword and blocked Kasame. "Zabuza's sword? No, wait, it's different." Naruto looked at the sword that jumped out of his arm, not sure if it was real. It's never came out fully formed that fast before. Two kunais went by him as he leaned out of the way. He cursed when one bounced off the other and was sent back at him, hitting him in the shoulder, but he ignored the injury. "I need to get out of here. Do you think we'll let you?" Naruto smirked and held his sword in a reverse grip and held one hand sign to his face, as the two cloaked shinobi gasped at being reminded of different things. "That's like how Zabuza used his mist technique." Shise. His eyes glowed orange for a second as his hair flared. "My bloodline lets me do things differently." He flared his chakra and did a shunshin, leaving in a black and gold blur. They grimaced at the burst of wind that ripped their face, only for something to crash through the back wall, and then the streets below as people screamed. Kasame almost laughed as Itachi looked irritated at Naruto's cry, completely destroying what might have been a baddest moment. "I fucked up. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification, and also check out the other videos that I have created, and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.